Hi, this is a video walkthrough on setting up your Raspberry Pi for the JRTC camp or class that's happening next week. Um, and so you should be receiving this box, and inside of it we should have the case, the power supply, and the three heat sinks taped to it, the screen, the Raspberry Pi itself, a micro SD card reader and a micro SD card preloaded with the software. You should have a HDMI to micro USB converter or adapter, a Type C to Type C power switch, a mouse, and a keyboard. Okay, so this is all the stuff you'll need. You'll need the screen with the four uh, mounting screws that should come already screwed into their places. You should have the case with the screws taped inside. You should have the Pi and the heat sinks. So to begin with, I would recommend starting with the heat sinks. So with the heat sinks, it's a little bit of shape and size matching. Um, but I'll show you the exact places they go. There is there is this adhesive blue piece that you have to peel off to get to the sticky stuff. Okay, so once you uh, take off that piece, grab the pie, and we just kind of want to see which one matches this shape. This one is the big square piece, and so that goes on the CPU, the big silver one. And we just want to kind of line it up and press down a little bit so the adhesive sticks. Uh, and on to the next one. Okay, so this is the kind of rectangular piece, or the rectangular piece, and this one goes on the black chip right next to the CPU. So line it up and place it on there and put a little pressure on and on to the next one and final one. So this is the smallest heatsink, the small square one, and this one goes on the big processor right there. Um, so right behind the USB 3 ports. Uh, so like all the others, line it up and give it a little pressure. Okay, and so now we have applied all of our heat sinks, so our Pi should be running at a nice cool temperature. Um, so the next step is to wire our screen. So with the screen, you should have gotten a bag with 4 wires and a ribbon cord, a ribbon wire. So these wires first. Now it doesn't actually matter which color you use where. It just matters that the color you use matches to the correct port on the Pi. Um, so I would recommend following my coloring, but uh, it's not required. So now we go down into the board that's mounted to the screen. Um, and we go to these prongs right here down on the bottom right. So first one is the black wire, which is the grounding wire. And we just want to take one side and insert that. Next is the yellow wire. And following directly after that is the green one. And now for the red one, we want to go to the very last one, and this is our power. So all of the wires should be right up to the base of the prongs. Okay, next is the ribbon wire. So the ribbon wire port is this one, right next to the ones we were just using. And you should see like some black tabs that you just kind of want to pull out, and it should fall down a little. And we want to take our ribbon wire with the blue side. The blue side is down, and the text should be up. So we just kind of line it up and place it in there, and take the tabs, pull it up or lift it up a little bit, and try to push in the tabs again. And so the finished product should look something like this, to where we have a small bit of the shiny bits right at the visible at the base, and the prong or the tab is pushed in. So now the next step I would recommend is mounting the Pi to the mount. So first you want to take off the screws that are there. And so now once the screws are out, we can line up with the SD card in, because it's hard to get to with the ribbon wire. So go ahead and put the SD card in. And that goes in with the golden teeth towards the board. So, and it just slides in where it protrudes a little bit. Well, you can't see it because of my desk. Where it protrudes a little bit. So we line up the SD card port and the ribbon port up with the ribbon port here. So line it up. Oh, take a couple screws and just kind of hold it in place. Now, I would not tighten all of these screws up to the board, because it needs some wiggle room to actually get it inside of the case. Um, and then once we have that in, we can tighten them up further. Okay, now, like before, let's get the wiring situated. So, we're going to be mapping these wires to this set of prongs right here. And so the first one we're going to do is the red wire. And so from the right, it's the second pin on the bottom. So just slot it in right there. Right there. And then it's the green, which is directly above the red. And then the yellow is directly beside the green. And the black, or the grounding wire, is filling out that last space below the yellow and beside the red. So you should have a little cube of wires offset by one. Now, if you didn't follow the coloring scheme, then map whatever colors you did there to those ports. So next is the ribbon wire, and like we did for the bottom board, uh, we're going to take this ribbon port, pull up the tabs, and it should lean out a little bit, and take the ribbon and kind of fold it over to where it can easily slot in. And push up the tab and push down. So it should lock into place. And there, the board is completely wired, and you can actually test it and plug in the power right there, turn it on, and it should light up. Now it's time to put our screen and Pi inside of the case. So first take out the screws. Um, there should be 4 of them. And we also want to take off this back plate. So then, so the ports are along the top right here, and they should line up with the ports on the board. So we just kind of want to bunch up our wires so we don't get them locked in and bend them or really mess them up. So it should kind of set in a little bit. Make sure no wires. Kind of like this. So kind of like this. But as you can see, the ports themselves and the holes for the ports don't exactly line up, which is why I suggested we not tighten up the screws all the way. And so I would recommend grabbing the USB 3 port gently. It shouldn't require any amount of force, and just kind of wiggle it around until both the uh, big ports, the USB and the Ethernet port, and the aux or the top ports line up. And once you get that, uh, the holes for the screws on the case should line up. All of them should line up. So just place it face down. Take your screws and screw them in. So now once your case is attached to the screen, we can go back into uh, the Pi itself and tighten up the screws to mount it. And do not overly tighten them, just tighten until they put up some resistance. Okay, and once you've done that, uh, it's now time to put the back plate on again. So we take this, line up the big round pegs to the round holes, kind of make sure our wires again don't get pinched, and lean it down to catch the tabs. And there we go. Now we are ready to plug it up. So when you boot up for the first time, you will see something like this, and all you'll need to do is check the Raspberry OS box and hit install, and then hit yes that you want to overwrite the SD, because there's nothing on it. So once you power on your Pi, it should go ahead and boot up to something like this. Um, and so if we go ahead and go next, we can set our country, which is United States, American English, and here in Cookville we are Chicago time zone, and use English language and keyboard. Next. So this is setting password for um, the default user Pi, so we are actually logged into the user Pi. Um, and this is just setting up uh, your screen size, which doesn't really matter to me, so I'm just going to hit next. I'm going to skip that. Uh, but you should go ahead and connect it to a network and um, run the updates. And once your updates are downloaded and installed, you should be prompted for a restart, and just go ahead and restart. Once Raspberry OS is finished installing, if your display is actually upside down, um, then there's a simple fix. You just need to install some type of text editor and add this command or this line of code to the /boot/config.txt file. Um, and that command is lcd underscore display equals 2. It'll flip the display 180 degrees, as well as the touchscreen input, and it'll fix it once you reboot. And then your Pi is ready to use.